Hey guys, Lee from Inner Peak. I'm just going to do a quick video to talk through the Personal Trainer Level 3 Learner Record. So you can see I've got the front cover, and on the next page you'll have the contents of the actual Personal Trainer Level 3 Learner Record. And on the next page you've got the Plan and Record Learner Record Achievement. So on this here, this is where we keep track, our tutors keep track of all the units that you are going to do and that you've completed. So we'll put some planned dates on here. So if you're doing a group course, there'll be a planned date for the weekends that you're doing these assessments. If you're doing one-to-one tuition, then we'll just put one-to-one tuition flexible dates in here, and you'll get a pass mark and you'll get signed off once you've completed each one of these sections. Now, your tutor will have discussed with you whether or not you are completing these worksheets, the first 4, via online multiple choice exams, or you're going to write these out. It's up to you. It's your choice. You can do either or some students do both. They use the worksheets, the written worksheets, to do like revision and stuff like that, help them learn, and then they do the multiple choice exams just to test their knowledge. It's up to you. If you do the multiple choice exams, it's on the Bodyed Solutions online platform, and it is multiple choice on there. It's much less time consuming than writing it all out, and you've got a 70% pass mark. So just scrolling on to the next page, which is your record of achievement. On here, we're just putting your learner name, sign it up, and it is basically you saying that you agree to be assessed. And your assessor's name will go on there, and also the signature as well. And then we move on to all of your worksheets. Now again, it's your choice whether you write these out. There's quite a lot of these. So this is anatomy and physiology, for example, and you would simply open up your manual, read the anatomy and physiology section, and then have a go at filling these out. Again, if you want to save some time, you don't have to do this. You can skip all of these sections by doing your online multiple choice, and that'll take you up to page 48, which we'll just skip to now. And that brings us to this section in the learner record. Now we do have to work through these sections. We do have to write these out. So you will read through the criteria here, and this will give you an idea of what you've got to do to fill out the rest of these sections and what you've got to do for the rest of the course from this stage onwards. So just going through it quickly, part 1, so you'll select a client to work with. So if you've done Gym Instructor Level 2, it'll be very similar in the sense that you'll do like an hour workout with a client, and you'll need to include all these things in this hour workout. So first of all, you'd sit your client down. So imagine you're a PT, maybe you've met for a coffee, and you'll sit down with your client, your brand new client, and you'll do a client consultation. You'll also do a health screening as well. So you're finding out, about their lifestyle, if they've got any health injuries, things like that, what their goals are. And we'll have a little look at that in more detail when we go through this learner record. Part 2, you're just going to use the results of the client interview to work out and plan a progressive 8-week program. So basically, if your client said to you that they've got 2 sessions per week and they've got 8 weeks available, so you need to plan for those sessions for 8 weeks, a program that will help them achieve their goals, and you need to show that you can progress each week throughout that 8-week program. Again, we'll talk more in detail about the 8-week program later. You must demonstrate sound knowledge of the principles of training. So these principles of training is the FIT principles. Now you might have read about these, you will have covered them in your level 2 gym instructor if you did that qualification. And it's basically the frequency, intensity, time and type principles, the FIT principles. And so the number of times that you train, how intense that you train, what type of training, it might be power, strength, hypertrophy, and how long the time, how long you spend doing the sessions. And then once you work all these things out, you can then look at some short, medium, long-term goals. And in the PT3 qualification, you have to set a physical goal and a nutritional goal. Again, we'll go through that in more detail. You will then provide 2 detailed program cards from your 8-week program using the templates that your tutor will have given you, and there's also some in the learner record. Your workout will need to include a range of exercises and physical activities to help your client achieve their objectives and their goals. So for example, if their objective and goals was to run a marathon in a certain time, then you would need specifically to have some cardiovascular goals in there. You would need to be getting them running, obviously, working on that cardiovascular fitness, endurance, and your 8-week program would reflect that. But you do need to include a mixture of different things. So down here, you'll see that you've got all these different training types. When you're putting your 8-week program together, this qualification requires you to choose 4 of these resistance training methods, and we'll talk a little bit about that in more depth. So the program cards must show the following. You must have a warm-up. So you do a ramp warm-up, and the examples of a ramp warm-up are in the manual. You then 2 variations of interval training on different pieces of CV kit. So you might do 1 on a treadmill, 1 on a cross trainer, for example. And the interval training, the 3 options that you have on this qualification, the first one is LSD, which stands for long, slow duration training. And that is just like steady state cardio. So it's like running at 60% of your heart rate max continuously for a long period of time. So the idea is you're working in the aerobic zone. Then the next one is fartlek. So the fartlek system is it's Swedish. It stands for speed play. So you play with a speed. So basically, if you were the PT, you would get your client on a treadmill, for example, and you wouldn't tell them when you were going to do the speed changes, and you wouldn't tell them how long for either. So it basically shocks your client's system, so they don't know what's coming next. So basically, it's very sport specific. So if you imagine like a football match, for example, that's what would happen. You wouldn't know when you were going to be required to sprint. You wouldn't know how long for. So it's a very good simulation for things like sports. And the last one is just programmed interval training. So like you see on some of the machines on the treadmill in the gyms, they have programmed interval sessions, and you can actually see the interval changes. So it's much easier to complete that because you know what's coming next. The body can prepare. Okay, so next, as I said before, you need to choose 4 of these. Now I'll quickly go through what these are. These training types, it does state in the manual what they are, but we'll go through quickly with them. So multi-setting, this is just very simply multiple sets of one exercise. So say for example you're doing bench press, you might do 2 or 3 sets of that same exercise. So you can choose multi-setting. Most people train this way. Pyramid sets. So pyramid training is a structured way to perform sets and reps that gradually increase or decrease the weight and or the reps with each set. So it's used to build strength, endurance, or hypertrophy, depending on how it's structured. But basically, there's 2 types. You've got an ascending pyramid and a descending pyramid. With an ascending pyramid, the reps go down and the weight goes up. So for example, on a bench press, set number 1 might be 12 reps at 40 kilograms. Set number 2, the reps go down, 10 reps at 50 kilograms, so the weight's increasing. Set number 3, 8 reps, 60 kilograms. And set number 4, 6 reps at 70 kilograms. A descending pyramid is the opposite, so the reps go up and the weight goes down. So for example, say you were squatting, you might do set number 1, 6 reps at 100 kg, nice and heavy. Set number 2, 8 reps, and you're coming down the weight this time, 90 kg. Set number 3, 10 reps, 80 kg. And set number 4, lastly, 12 reps at 70 kg. So that's the 2 examples of a ascending or a descending. Now a full pyramid is where you go up and then back down. So you'll do an ascending pyramid followed by a descending pyramid. So it's very intense and lots of sets, very time consuming. The next set, or system should I say, is supersetting. Supersets, most people have done these. It's basically 2 exercises back to back with no rest. You can work the same muscle groups. So say for example you do a superset on back, you might do a lat pull down followed by a seated row, for example. Or you could do opposite muscle groups. So you could, say for example, do a bicep curl followed by a tricep push down. The next system is a giant set. A giant set is 4 exercises back to back with no rest. Very intense. So you probably look to do something like legs for this, and you might choose your 4 exercises like a squat, quad extension, hamstring curl, and then maybe finish with a calf raise. Trisets, clues in the name, tri meaning 3 exercises back to back, no rest. You might choose something like shoulders. You might do a shoulder press followed by a front raise followed by a lateral raise. No rest. 3 back to back. Forced reps. So this one is a posh word. Posh way of saying spotting your client just to get a few more reps out of them. So you force a few reps by spotting. So say for example they're on the bench press and you plan to do 10 reps to failure, and then the last 2 remaining reps you're going to come in and you're going to spot them. You're going to spot them for an extra 2 reps just to help them get that out, the last few reps. Pre and post exhaust. So pre-post exhaust training, if you're pre-exhausting something, so say for example we're going to do 2 exercises, so it's a bit like a superset. We're going to pre-exhaust our pecs. So we're going to jump on a pec fly and then we're going to jump on a bench press straight after. So what happens is the pecs are fatigued, and as a result the bench press is going to be much harder to complete, and the nervous system won't be used to that. So you'll get a bit of a body shock, and like anything else with new stimulus on the nervous system, you inevitably end up with adaptation. So you'll end up with gains provided you do the correct recovery and get the nutrition on board, etc. The opposite, post-exhaust, would be where you look to exhaust a muscle afterwards. So again, if you're using like a superset system with a post-exhaust, we might look to post-exhaust the triceps after a bench press. So we might do the bench press, triceps will be nice and tired, exhausted, and then you jump straight on a tricep push down and just finish off the triceps afterwards. So again, you're going to get that feeling of exhaustion in a single muscle group. Negative training now, or eccentric training. So with negatives, you're focusing on the downward phase of an exercise. So say for example you're doing a bicep curl. Obviously when you're pulling the dumbbells up towards your chest, that is the upward phase. That is the concentric phase of the exercise. And then when you let the dumbbells back down nice and slowly, that's the negative aspect. That is the eccentric phase of the exercise. Now, scientific studies have shown that the eccentric phase of an exercise actually tears more muscle fibers than the concentric phase, which is a good thing. So that is what we're trying to achieve when we're weightlifting, when we're doing resistance training. We want to create little micro tears so that when we are recovering, when we're sleeping, getting all our fuel on board, all those little micro tears are repaired when we're at rest, and they come back bigger, stronger, and better. So that's the idea. So by focusing more on negatives, we're going to increase the damage to those muscle fibers, which is a good thing. So we might say, for example, right, we're going to do a bicep curl. What I want you to do, I want your client, so the client is going to do 1 second on the upward phase, and we're going to focus on 4 seconds on the way down, so making it really long focusing on that negative aspect, getting your client to really work hard as they lower the weight down. And then finally, circuit training. Circuit training is pretty common. Most people have done a circuit before. So it's just multiple exercises back to back, moving on to different exercises. And it might be a timed circuit, it might be a rep circuit, as many reps as possible. Lots of different ways. I don't normally see many students choosing this option just because it's really time consuming and you have to make sure that you have these exercises available. Nobody else is using them in the gym. So 4 of any of these systems will be appropriate. Once you have put all these together, you're then going to need a cool down at the end, which can be 5 minutes on a different piece of CV equipment than you used at the beginning, and then you're finishing off with some stretching. And you can choose any of the stretches that your tutor has shown you, either static stretching, developmental stretching, or PNF stretching, and you need to stretch the whole body. And you need to choose a minimum of 3 upper body, 3 lower body stretches. Then once you finish that, you're providing a 4-week review. So when you're doing your 8-week program, there is a page in the learner record that is it's like a halfway review, and it gives you a chance as a PT to measure whether or not your client is on track to achieve all the goals, whether or not you need to make any changes. If your client's bored of the same exercise, you might change it up, and you'll use the template provided to show how you're going to review it. And then you'll have to do 2 program cards, which are in the learner record. And those 2 program cards, program card 1 will be from week 4 in your 8-week program, and program card number 2 will be from week 8 in your 8-week program. So you'll need to demonstrate on the program cards. It'll obviously show different reps, it'll show different exercises on there. So your tutor will then decide which program card they're going to choose for your practical assessment, and you'll have to complete that with your client. So just moving on then to the first part of the health induction, which is the client assessment. This is a physical activity readiness questionnaire. This is kind of an old school form now that's not used that often these days in gyms. Normally you'll sign up digitally, and in the small print they include a little health questionnaire just to cover themselves insurance wise, and you'll say on there that you're fit and well to train, and that's it. You'll digitally sign it. With this, I would recommend all PTs have one of these in their induction pack up, because it will cover you. If somebody's got like a heart condition, for example, if they answer yes when you're asking these questions, you can then decide whether or not they need to go away and get a doctor's note before they start training with you, and it just covers you a little bit more insurance wise if you've got one of these filled out. Hopefully your client is going to tick no for all of these, and then it's nice and easy. They will just sign at the bottom to say that they're happy to train with you, and it's valid for 12 months from that date. So on to the next stage, which is the client interview. The client interview now is where you're taking some personal details from your client and trying to build up a picture of what their goals are, etc. So name of the client, date of birth, whether they are male or female, height, weight, BMI, blood pressure, resting heart rate, and then you've got the tape measurements here, abdomen, hips, arms, legs. You only need to choose a couple of these for the purpose of the assessment. In real life, you would ask your client what they prefer. I would always kind of do the bog standard ones, height and weight. I don't really do BMI these days. It's not the most accurate way of measuring somebody's health. With BMI, if somebody's got existing muscle mass, if they're already training, it doesn't take that into account, and it can show somebody who's very lean and muscular as being obese. So You can use this for sedentary clients, but for well-trained clients, not a great health measurement to use. Blood pressure, really good. This can be an indication of, heart attacks and strokes. Resting heart rate, really good for fitness levels. So as a PT, you need to be cluing yourself up with what are the healthy ranges for blood pressure, for males and females of a certain age group. Some PTs will carry like a little box of tricks where they'll have a blood pressure monitor. They might have a grip strength tester. They might have some scales. You can get some really high-tech digital scales these days that do the full body stat analysis. So you can personalize this to your own offering as a PT. Okay, clients' motivators for wanting to exercise. So what is it they want to do? What are their goals? You would put that in there. And you want to try this section here, really focus on trying to get out from your client what it is they really want to do. Why have they come to you? What is their why? And some clients will give you quite a vague answer initially, so you really want to probe what it is. So you want to lose weight. Okay, why do you want to lose weight? What is it that's motivating you to want to lose weight? And the more you find out about that, the more you can really tap into the client psychologically and really help achieve that goal. So lifestyle, next one, dead simple. Just work through these questions and this will give you an idea of what they do and how long you've got to train with them and what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy, things like that. What is a nutrition like? So you're looking at, what do you eat for breakfast? What do you how much do you drink water wise? Do you eat protein? As in, the required sort of levels for gym training and stuff. So you're building up a little picture, do they eat too much sugar? Do they not get enough fibre? Do they eat fruit and veg? All these types of things in there. Do you have any barriers to achieving your goals? So these barriers is anything that's going to stop them achieving their goals, perceived or actual. Actual is something like they might have 3 kids and a family and a 9-to-5 job. These are all actual goals. Perceived is more psychological. So it might be that your client is really unconfident. They don't like going in a gym setting. They feel like everyone's watching them. They feel too tired all the time. So you need to work through these barriers. Then health questions. Any injuries? Anything in the past they suffer with? Do they have any extra pains? How long do they sleep at night? What's your activity levels? Do you currently train? Do you play football? Do you do any? Is your job quite intense? What's your training age? That means how long have they been training for? How many years? If they've done 5 years and that's their training age, 5 years. How often would they like to train? So if they can train twice a week with you, then you've got them twice a week for 8 weeks. Then we come on to the SMART goals. So if you did level 2 gym instructor, you will have covered these. This time the differences are you have a physical goal and a nutritional goal. So you've still got a long-term, medium and short-term goals that they have a year, then they have 6 months, then they have a 1 month goal there. Okay, so I always start with a long-term goal first. So say for example my goal is to lift 100 kilograms on a bench press. I need to make that SMART. So if you remember what SMART stands for, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and time bound. So how am I going to do that? So is my bench press goal specific? Yeah, it's really specific. I've told you what exercise I want to do. I've told you what weight I want to lift. So it's really specific. Is it measurable? Yes. So all we need to do is put the correct weight on there on the bar and complete a 1 rep max test in a year's time and we can measure it. Is it achievable? That will depend on the client's experience. It will depend on your knowledge as well. So you'll ask them, have you ever lifted this weight before? You'll see by looking at somebody if they're quite muscular or they look like they're strong. You know, you might say, oh, actually, yeah, you look quite strong. You might be able to lift around about that weight. So is it going to be achievable? You'll decide that together. Is it realistic? Is it realistic? So if it's realistic, so if I said I want to lift double what I can lift right now in a week, then obviously that is not realistic. It's going to take way longer, and it's going to take a lot of hard work. So you'll need to decide together whether or not it's realistic. And time bound, you need to put a date on it. So don't just use 12 months. Put an actual physical date, as in the 1st of July 2026, something like that. If you put an actual date, it makes it much more clear when this has got to be done by, so it'll be more achievable. So starting with the long-term goal then, bench press 100 kilograms by the 1st of July 2026. I'll then come back, I might do 75 kilograms on a bench press, and I come 6 months back. My short-term goal, bench press, I might just get my client in the gym and complete a 1 rep max bench press to see where they're at on a specific day, and again I'd write the date in there. For the nutritional goals, it could be a drink water goal, it might be fruit and veg. So you might say, I want my client to eat 5 portions of fruit and veg every day by a year's time, and again you put in an actual date. Then when you come back here 6 months back, you might say, I'm going to get my client to eat 5 portions of fruit and veg, not every day, we're going to do 4 days a week by a specific date that's 6 months back from the year. And then short term, just the first month or so, you're going to get your client to maybe start a food diary, and you're going to get them to try 5 portions of fruit and veg just 1 day a week. Something nice and easy, something that's achievable. So that'll be your SMART goals. So make those as specific as you can. You then come on to this stage, which is how will the goals be reviewed? So the goals will be reviewed quite simply. So our goal for the bench press, all you will be required to do on the long term, on the same date that you set for the actual goal, you're going to complete a 1 rep max test in the gym on that same date. Simple as that. Same for the medium, same for the short term. With a nutritional goal, how would you review a nutritional goal? Well, you got them to start a food diary, didn't you? So you can check their food diary in a year's time on that specific date to make sure that they were eating 5 portions of fruit and veg. And the same for the medium and the short term. How are you going to maintain contact between sessions? Some people, phone calls, text messages, WhatsApp, social media.